In today's tutorial, I'm going to show you how to cut out and install a collar with a band. Hi friends, welcome back to So Obvious. I'm Apolinar. In my last video, I showed you guys how to pattern out a basic collar, both for the Mandarin and a collar with a band. Today I'm going to show you guys how to install it. Just a warning, I did make some alterations to the pattern that we learned from last week, so pay close attention when I give you the instructions. Okay, so we're going to be using the same pattern piece that we created in my last video. However, I did make a few alterations just so that it makes a little bit more sense for you guys. For example, both of our pieces had a seam going on the back, which is the center seam. I got rid of those because we are going to be installing this into a shirt that opens from the front. Therefore, there is no seam in the back. We made this basic collar last video and it was about 1.5 inches wide without the seam allowance. In order to make it a collar stand, I shortened it by 1/2 inch and extended it 1 inch out this way so that we have that little extra inch where the buttons would be going in the center, right in the middle of your neck. I also created this half shirt, so you can see it's not very long. Nobody can wear it because if they wear it, they're going to be showing off their nip nops. I mean, I guess if you're into that. This is just for the purpose of us installing the collar. Another thing I want to remind you guys is that I don't have a placket on this shirt, so when the collar is on it, it is going to be like 1 inch longer than this seam here. That is because that inch would be taken up by the little placket that we would create, which I'm going to show you guys how to make that in a future video. We're going to be cutting out 2 of the collar in the self fabric on a fold, and then we're going to be cutting 1 out of a fusible interfacing, also on fold. We will be doing the exact same thing for the collar stand. Don't forget to transfer these marks here and then also a notch in the center seam of your patterns. As you can see, I already created a little cut right there, and then a little bit further down I have another cut right there, a little snip. You want to make sure that it's smaller than the seam allowance because otherwise it's going to leave a hole in the seam. For those of you who have never worked with fusible interfacing, there is people who kind of feel differently about it. For example, the size of the fusible interfacing, some people always cut it out so that it is basically the pattern without the seam allowance, so it's on the inside. Some people cut it out all the way around. I do both. I think it depends on what kind of fabric you're working with. The fusible interfacing you're using should be about the same weight as the fabric that you are using. The fabric we're using today is very lightweight, therefore the fusible is going to be very lightweight as well. So it's not going to be adding a lot of bulk if I leave it complete without cutting out the seam allowances. But you're welcome to make your own choices and research on that. When you have these all cut out, we're going to move on to the next step, which is we're going to iron on our fusible to 1 of each piece of the collar and the collar stand. Remember, we do not use steam when doing the fusible because that makes the glue not stick. And remember to put the bumpy side of the fusible facing the wrong side of the fabric. Otherwise, you'll just be gluing the fusible to your iron. I've done that. It's not fun, and I definitely do not recommend it. Once you have those ironed on, we are going to set our collar stand to the side, and we're going to work with our collar. So we're going to put our collars right sides together, and we are going to sew at 1/4 inch across here, here, and there. However, we are going to make sure that we start in the center. We're going to start here in the center, so all the way over here, put our needle down, pivot, sew down this way, repeat the process over here. We don't want to start at one end and go all the way to the other because it could shift one of the fabrics, and we want to avoid that. In order to evenly distribute all this fabric, we're going to start in the middle, work our way out. Okay, so I've stitched at 1/4 inch all the way around. Then what I did, and what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to trim the corners. You're going to cut as close to that corner as possible without going through. Then I just trimmed the sides right here just to make it easier for us when we turn it. Do the same thing on this corner. You can trim up here if you want to as well, but you don't have to. Once you've done that, we can turn this inside out. And we're gonna make sure that we push the corners out as much as possible. Here I have this little point turner. It looks like a shank, so you can stab somebody. But we're gonna use it to push our corners out. You want to use it without pushing too much. They are sharp, and you don't want to push through the point. Once you have it all turned out and as pointy as it's going to be, I think this is as pointy as mine are going to be, then we're going to press the collar so that this seam here lays perfectly flat. Just like the sewing, I recommend that you press from the center out. Once you have it pressed, nice and crisp, we are going to do an edge stitch. How close to the edge you make your edge stitch depends on you. Some people like their edge stitch to be like 1/8 of an inch, like right there on the edge. Some people do a whole 1/4 inch, and it kind of depends on the style of shirt that you're going to make. Usually if you make something like a denim shirt, then I would recommend about 1/4 of an inch. If you're making like a dress shirt, then I'd say something more like 1/8 of an inch, or even closer to the edge if possible. But before we do the edge stitch, you want to do a basting stitch across the bottom, the raw part, this part. We're gonna do a basting stitch to help us prevent the fabric from shifting a little bit. So here we have our little basting stitch done on both sides. You guys, I'm so good at this. I already took out my basting stitch. Now we are going to go back to our collar stands. Our collar stand that has the fusible interfacing with it, and we are going to press the bottom part, the non-curved part. This part's curved, this part's not. We're gonna turn that part in, press it at 1/4 of an inch all the way across. Once you have that pressed, we're gonna basically make a sandwich from the fabric. The collar stand is going to be the bread, and the collar itself is going to be the meat, or the filling, or vegetables, or whatever if you don't eat meat. So one thing that's important is you are going to want to make sure that the two pieces of fabric that don't have the fusible are on the same side, and the two pieces of fabric with the fusible are on the other side. So you want to match the center fold, which is right here, on both sides. And you're gonna pin them in place because these pieces are all curved and they're not going to want to sit perfectly together. You're going to have about 1 inch and a half left over right here. We want that. That's how we know that we lined up the notches, pinned in place. Again, we're going to start from the center. So at 1/4 inch all the way around, all the way through this curve to the end. And don't forget to backstitch. Then we're gonna do the exact same thing on the other side. 1/4 inch all the way around. Okay, once you have that sewn, what we need to do is we need to trim around here. We're gonna be doing a little notch. This right now, we have this curving out. When we turn it the other way, we're gonna be forcing all of this to curve in. So we have to make notches or clips to be able to fit that in there. So we're gonna cut little V's like that, as close to the seam as possible, all the way around the curve. We're gonna do this on both sides. Once you have the notches, go ahead and turn this inside out. And just like everything else, we're going to press it. Yay, pressing. So here we have the collar. As you can see, we still have this raw edge on this side. This is the part that we're going to sew onto the actual collar of the shirt. So now we're gonna get our shirt right sides together. We are going to match the center notch with the center fold. Then we're going to match this notch here with the shoulder seam. Same on the other side. Remember that when you get to the ends, it's not going to match up perfectly. It's going to have some left over. That's fine. Once you have it all pinned down, at 1/4 inch, we're going to open it up this way, like this. So on the machine, 1/4 inch all the way across. Okay, so here we have the collar sewn to the shirt. Now you're gonna wanna turn it over to the other side, the side that's on the outside. Make sure that there is no major puckering. Wanna make sure that you don't have any folds or anything. Once you have that figured out, we are going to press this seam towards the collar so that when we pull this down, it covers it. So let's do all that pressing. Once you have it pressed and you have this on top, we're going to take a sewing needle, a hand sewing needle, and some thread, and you're going to slip stitch it. Or what other people like to do as well is they go on the wrong side, making sure that both of these pieces are right on top of each other, and they do an edge stitch right in this seam to keep it in place. It really depends on what you want to do. Doing the slip stitch will make sure that no one actually sees any sort of thread. So let's go put this on the mannequin and see what it looks like. Here we have it on the mannequin. As you can tell, there's a little bit of space there because that's where the placket would be, where the buttons would be. But see, it lays nice and crisp. Gotta do some pressing there. Let's just ignore that. We're just looking at the collar. Good. And then if you were to button it up, you have that overlap right there. Ugh. I'm so good at this, you guys. Oh my God. If you liked today's video, make sure that you like, comment, share, subscribe, and ring the bell. You can also follow me on Instagram on @apollylook. There, I post some of my upcoming projects and any videos that I'll be posting on here. If you didn't like today's video, then do me, yourself, and your neighbors a favor and go wash your hands. I know that everyone is acting like hand sanitizer is like the it girl in this industry, but we should really only be using hand sanitizer when we cannot wash our hands. Nothing is going to replace soap and hot water, bitch, and stop touching your face. Also, side note, the only people that should be wearing those face masks are people who actually have coronavirus or are showing symptoms of the coronavirus. If you don't have those symptoms, then you really don't need to be wearing them. I learned that from all the nurses that work. Don't forget, I love you, but don't touch me. Bye.